All right, we are live. Welcome to a new edition of the Goon Squad. I'm your host, Bobby Melendez, and as you can see here, as usual, we got some guys that join me: Alex, Atia Chisca, Neil, Cordero, Juan Vasquez, and Harris Melendez. But Neil's actually going to be out tonight. He got stuck at work. That's okay. Alex is at Disney World. He'll join us around 8:30. Juan is running late. He'll come in at around, I'll say about a few minutes, 10 minutes, and Harrison is where he is. He'll come on eventually. But there's so much to talk about. There's no time to waste. The Miami Heat free agency is tomorrow, the start of free agency, but news is already leaking. Of course, last week, just until a few days ago, there was mystery around Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Where were they going to go? What was going to happen with Kyrie? How would that affect KD? And then Kyrie ended up opting into his contract and says he's going to fulfill, or the report is he's going to fulfill his obligation to Kevin Durant. All fine and dandy. Now Durant is off the table, supposedly, or Kyrie. Of course, the Nets supposedly, reportedly, were not interested in bringing him back, and they were talking about possibly sending him over to the Lakers. The Lakers were the only team really expressing interest. The Heat, very minimal interest. The Nets were more interested in Miami because Miami's assets, but Miami was not looking to trade Kyle Lowry. That report just came out that the Miami Heat informed Lowry that they were not going to include Kyle Lowry in the trade for Kyrie Irving. So it's obvious that Miami's not very interested. Now, Miami could be playing smokescreen. I mean, that could be the case, right? I mean, it's a talent like Kyrie. You can't sleep on him, but as I've said before, and I don't knock the talent, when he's on the court, one of the best players in the NBA, absolutely, one of the greatest. But when is he on the court? And it's not about injury. In his point, it's mentally. John Wall, Alex Atiachiska brought him up a lot of times, and we were discussing that. That was something we had a back and forth last week on during the draft special, where John Wall being available, should Miami acquire him or try to. He's opted out of his deal with Houston, and he looks like by tomorrow night he'll be a Los Angeles Clipper with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. That is a team to be reckoned with next season, but again, like the same thing kind of going with Kyrie, except this is injury when they're actually on the court. When they're on the court, yeah, it should be a team to be reckoned with, but whenever they're on the court is the key word. Tyler Hero, Anthony Chang reported that Tyler Hero will seek a max extension for the Miami Heat, but he might have to settle for a 4-year, $25 million per season. I know Juan, once he comes on, I know he'll have plenty to talk about on that. I think that's a safe move. I think you get him the money. I know he wants to start. I know he's talked about it. I know Pat Riley said he has to earn it. But you get Tyler Hero, you secure his contract, 4 years, $110 million, whatever that adds up to. You secure him at his deal. If you can't move him, if that's what you were trying to do, at least you have a tradable asset by the deadline. And not saying that we should trade him. I'm thinking, Tyler Hero is going to continue to grow as a player. I don't think he's reached the ceiling. I don't think he could be a second player on a championship team, but he's definitely a valuable asset for the Miami Heat. So, but if the Heat could get a player like, and the talented caliber like a KD or a Kyrie or whatever, for someone like Tyler Hero in that package with a Duncan Robinson, then you have to explore or entertain that idea of a possible trade. And that contract is not a detergent. I think it would be attractive to teams to secure a young piece like that. Jalen Brunson of the Dallas Mavericks, he's a free agent, should be a free agent. Everybody's been linking him to the New York Knicks to sign a massive contract with the New York Knicks. But surprising news is that Miami has secured a meeting with him. And it wasn't Miami who requested the meeting. Brunson's people have requested the meeting themselves, which I find very interesting. It's kind of like what happened with LaMarcus Aldridge when he left Portland and eventually signed with San Antonio. Miami didn't have the money, but LaMarcus Aldridge wanted to meet with the Heat and Pat Riley to see if it was possible. That's why I'm saying now don't sleep on LaMarcus Aldridge to the Heat as a veteran pickup piece. But I find it very interesting, of course, to secure Jalen Brunson, who's the point guard, who played point guard for the Dallas Mavericks. To secure him, you might have to do a sign and trade. And that might have to include Kyle Lowry. Now, I do know that the Heat said they're not going to include Kyle Lowry in a trade for Kyrie, but they didn't say anybody else in that report. So I wouldn't be surprised if that occurred. Somebody brought up a good point earlier. I know people say, Kyle Lowry is close with Jimmy Butler, but Jimmy Butler was close with Goran Dragic. He was very close with he's close with PJ Tucker, but PJ Tucker could be on the way out. Goran was traded. So I would be surprised for the best of the team if this occurs because it's happened in the past. Let's see. Of course, the Heat, we're going to talk about that when the guys get in here. The Heat acquired with the 27th pick. We were wondering if they were going to trade it. Were they going to include this for a bigger deal, for like a star player, whatever? They ended up keeping the pick. And we were just discussing this guy throughout the night, Nikola Jovic, suburban power forward, shooting small forward who could play the point, great ball handling, explosive, goes at the end of the ball, shoots threes, etc. We're excited about this kid. Raw prospect, has to work a little bit on his defense. Is improving in that area. Played in the pro league in Serbia, so he's played against pros before. So I was excited about that pickup. I wanted the Heat to kind of target someone like that, or Walker Kessler, who ended up going to, I believe it was Memphis. But Jovic is a huge pickup for Miami. Pat Riley said we're going to hang this jersey up in the rafters one day. So kind of tells you what Miami thinks of Jovic and his future with the Heat. They said the same thing about Bam Adebayo. Let's look back over here too as I'm waiting on these guys. Let's see here. What other deal? I know that they were talking about Blake Griffin. The Heat being interested in him if he is or becomes a free agent. More than likely he will. And of course, as we discussed now, this is another guy I talked about with the guys on our chats, was a guy I was intrigued by. There's a couple of them actually, but one first is Kyle Anderson with the Memphis Grizzlies. Could play small forward or power forward. He need a stretch forward, could shoot from the three. I like him. Another one is Chris Boucher out of Toronto, the Toronto Raptors. Backup power forward again. Another guy who plays center and power forward, two-way type player. Double spot. I think he'd be a good fit for Miami. He started getting better from the three-point. Let me go ahead and pull this up for a second. It's a lot easier when you have people on here. That's okay. We got, and don't forget, if you haven't yet, hit that like and subscribe button. You're watching the Goon Squad on the Fins Talk Network. We usually have about 4, 5, 6 people on here. But things have popped up, and that's okay. But we're not going to cancel the show. We're going to keep it going. I could talk about much about this, and I can about the Dolphins as well. So we got plenty of content to discuss. Now let me look at this for you. T.J. Warren. I see his name on my list. T.J. Warren, interesting. So PJ Tucker could be on the way out. Supposedly, of course, you see James Harden has opted out of his mega deal in Philadelphia, $47 million. He's leaving on the table. And then to sign a lesser contract with the Philadelphia 76ers so they can have more money in order to sign players. Or sign especially players like PJ Tucker. And if PJ Tucker, which is supposedly is leaning towards signing with the 76ers, leaves, how can the Heat replace him? Well, like I said, I brought up Kyle Anderson. We've talked the Chris Boucher. T.J. Warren is another one, which is interesting with his relationship with Jimmy Butler. The back and forth they've had, I think he's a perfect fit with Miami with that, with the way his defense and ball handling, physicality. Looks like one of our guys are in. Let me go ahead and pull this up. We got Mr. Juan with us. Juan in there. What's up, Juan? How you doing, brother?
Good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Alex will be joining us in about 25 minutes. I think he just hopped on Thunder Mountain at Disney. Harrison is running a little late, and of course Neil said he is off working. So it is us for now, my man. I was just talking about. Well, let's start with this. We were talking about PJ Tucker possibly leaving and how to fill that role. Of course, we'll get more as we get into it. But Tyler Hero. So I know you've been discussing this for a while now. You saw the reports earlier today that Tyler Hero might sign a 4-year extension, $10 million for $25 a year, supposedly. And Anthony Chang reported that he's going to look to try to get the max contract. What are your thoughts about Tyler Hero or the Heat working that deal out if they were to sign him? I think it's close to confirm, but what's your reaction to that? I know you were kind of disgruntled on him So what's your deal on that? And if the Heat did do it,
Well, yeah, with Tyler Hero, when I first heard the news, I wasn't really happy about it because this is a player that I did want to trade away. But if we go ahead and sign him, if the league doesn't look at it as an atrocious contract, I think it would actually help us move him if that's the plan. Just because you're getting a guy locked down for a while. Teams are not gonna if there's a contract expiring, teams are not gonna want to value that trade as much. So I really favored this in the end. But yeah, at first I was really like, I don't know how I feel about this because with the way Pat Riley has been moving lately, it's just it worries me because there's a lot of players going off the board, a lot of moves being made, and it seems like the Heat is on the back end of it. So it leaves me with a bad taste in my mouth that maybe Pat Riley's having some plans of running some type of roster that we had back without no Oladipo and without no Tucker.
I know you kind of brought that up on Twitter. If people are not following you yet, they should. Third and One, not only Miami Heat opinions, but also great Miami Dolphins content. I'll throw that out there. But I've seen you kind of throw that out there about Pat Riley, that you're a little frustrated with it. What's he doing? I mean, there is not much he can do in regards of making deals just because of the money that's limited. I believe they're over the cap and they have like a mid-level exception or something. Of course, there's sign and trade deals. I know we were just talking about, as I brought up earlier, Kyrie Irving last week and the possibility of KD. And of course, just a few days ago, that kind of went up in smoke just because Kyrie accepted his option. Now, of course, that can mean anything. You can accept his option, and that's still saying we're going to trade your ass and get rid of him. But more than likely, he's sticking there for at least one more year. So I understand the frustration because it looks like everybody else is moving, and the Heat are just sitting idle by. The same could have been said about the Dolphins this offseason before they ended up, even though they got, it was a little before free agency, but they signed some people, but it wasn't the names people were talking about. A lot of people were disappointed with Miami Dolphins free agency until they traded for Terran Armstead, and they were like, oh, good, they finally got that guy. That's the guy we needed to tackle. And then the next day they shocked the world and took Tyreek Hill. So I'm not saying that's going to turn into that. I agree with you because I just said it a little while ago that the Tyler Hero deal, if it goes down, I don't see it as, if you're a fan of Tyler Hero, great. Yeah, he's still young enough. He still provides upside. He's still a competitive piece, whatever. But it's also, if you're someone who, like you, who's like, we need to move him and blah, blah, it's not a bad thing. I don't see it as a loss either because that could be an attractive piece, that 4-year deal in a trade come trade deadline when a player like Bradley Beal or whoever, they say, or Donovan Mitchell, if they stick with their teams till the trade deadline, they're pissed off with the way the team is going, as usually they are. The Heat have the pieces to make that type of move. So I know it sucks to say this, but like, I hate this trust the process type of thing, but I think it's good to sit back and kind of let this play out. It sucks to lose PJ because he's a huge part of this team. Victor Oladipo, I love Oladipo ever since he was in Orlando, one of my favorite players. I liked what he provided for Miami during the playoffs, even though he didn't score too much defensively. It was, another piece. But injury concerns are real. I don't know if Miami feels comfortable re-signing him. We'll see. I know Alex is hopeful, but he always is about everything, But, I'm not knocking him, when he watches and everything. But there are some pieces and free agency that Miami could target to replace these guys. Is there anybody out there, though, in your opinion? I mean, we're talking about different names here. I know I thrown some names out there, but let's say we do lose PJ Tucker. Is there anyone in your mind you go, man, the Heat need to go after this guy?
Yeah, so, I mean, PJ Tucker, you're losing Gray, you're losing Hart, you're losing a centerpiece of the locker room, really. And I like Bobby Portis, probably, if he's available. If something's able to be done about that situation, I feel like he could be a really good piece to fill in for that. He's pretty much a younger version of PJ, given that like he really got it out of the mud, almost being out of the league, and then like really making a comeback and turning into a staple for the franchise he's playing for. So I think Bobby Portis will be a good name if that could be made possible, to be honest.
I love the idea of Bobby Portis we lose PJ Tucker, who came from the Bucks, and bring in a Bobby Portis, who's coming from the Bucks. And Bobby Portis, just like PJ, I think would fit perfect with the Miami Heat culture and the type of player the Heat need at the 4. Talking about the 4, because that's kind of the position of need now. At point guard, you got Kyle Lowry. Let's say if everything sticks the way it is, Kyle Lowry is your point guard. Shooting guard is Tyler Hero, Strus, whatever. And then you got small forward is Jimmy, Duncan. I think Hayward is another guy that nobody talks about. Adebayo, you're at 7 at the center. Power forward's kind of there, and Jovic is a small forward, but he's 6'10". You can put him at the power forward. I know Harrison was talking to me earlier today about he liked to play him at the 1 at the point guard spot. I understand with the ball handling and all that, but it is the main position of need right now for Miami. And my thing is, we need a guy who not only plays defense but also could shoot from the perimeter. So Alex threw out there on our chat about Jovic starting at the 5. So I have to ask you that. I know you've had a week now to digest. We were excited. We watched the draft. We talked about this kid. You got sold on him during the draft. You're like, dude, I want him. And also we got him. The clouds parted, heaven showed, lights came down. We were excited about it. Now that you've had a week to digest, you could talk about this kid. Tell me what your thoughts on him. But can you see him starting at the 4 for Miami?
Maybe in the future if he puts on some more weight, but now for him to play, I see him more as a hybrid type of like forward/guard, because his ball handling is really good. He can really shoot, and he has some distance on him. Like he can shoot from the perimeter, he can shoot off pivot. So this guy, like, I know I saw some memes on Twitter that this was the upgraded version of Tyler Hero. So
oh man,
I looked at him and I'm like, hey, he has the swagger to him, which obviously is different because he's European, so it doesn't have like the same type of swagger as we're used to here in America. But he has the game, he has the handles, he's point getter, like he's a bucket getter. So I'm really good with, like Harrison said, maybe in the future. I don't know if he could bang bodies with big dudes like that right now, but maybe in the future you could put him there. But yeah, I see him as probably having that type of Tyler Hero type role probably in the future, as probably being the main ball handler with the twos. But now that we're in the topic of the point guard, Bobby, I know you mentioned Kyle Lowry, but maybe, I don't know, the possibilities. I mean, what do you think about Chris Paul and the chances of him staying with Phoenix? Because that team got out to a very, very disappointing loss, and I see them like making some drastic moves. We know Aiden's probably out the door, and maybe they're looking at, hey, with Devin Booker and Chris Paul, we probably can't win this whole thing, so we need to probably take another alternative. So what do you think about Chris Paul?
Well, I'll say I haven't heard anything about him being available. I actually love Chris Paul and the option of Chris Paul in the Heat when he was available, when he went to OKC from Houston, when he was actually available from Houston to OKC and then vice versa. I was really on board with bringing him over to the Heat. Me and Alex debated back and forth about it. Veteran, whatever, takes away from young guys, blah, 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 blah. I want to win a championship. That's always my mentality. And as Pat Riley is, I'm sure, yes, I'm all about developing the young guys. I'm all about the future, etc. But I'm not about, let's wait 2 years for this guy to become a free agent, because we did that with Giannis and it didn't work out. We did that with KD and it didn't work out. I'm about winning now. What can you do to win right now with the pieces that we have? If that trade was to present itself now, so that's why I wanted Chris Paul on the Heat. You obviously one of the best players of all time, still performs at a very high level, but you're also getting a team leader. You're getting a veteran, someone who commands respect and someone who could contribute. If Jimmy Butler had somebody like Chris Paul in the finals, I think we win the finals that year with LeBron. He didn't have that. We had Goran Dragic because, team, whatever, But if it was available right now, if you're telling me, Bobby, Chris Paul's available, Kyle Lowry, Tyler Hero, and a pick, I'm down with that. I'm a huge fan of Chris Paul, and I still think he will be a huge piece for any team that he's on. If it's Phoenix, look what he did in Phoenix. But the same could say, how was I proven right? Even though we didn't get Paul, look what Kyle Lowry did for Miami. A veteran presence. Now, he's not the same player. I'm not saying that on the court, but a veteran team leader type player. He still came in in big moments. He's a champion. Not Chris Paul, but he's a champion. So to me, that kind of proved I was right. We need that type of point guard for Miami, a quarterback type point guard like that who manages the game. So I love it. So I assume that you as well would love a Chris Paul type player or Chris Paul himself on Miami. You would love that opportunity.
No, yeah, especially with that. And, comparing it to Kyle Lowry, I know you said it's not the same, but I don't think it does it justice just because, the other factors that Chris Paul brings into the table. I know you said Kyle Lowry is a champion, but I actually do see, a lot of upside from Chris Paul having winning one yet. You're putting him with Jimmy, who's also another player who he knows with his style of play, he's not going to be able to play at 38 years old like Chris Paul can, just because Chris Paul is more of a finesse game and Jimmy's really physical. So, yeah, dude, I feel like matching them up together, you're getting two players that are really hungry to win a championship. They haven't gotten the chance to win it before. They've both been in the finals, tasted the defeat in the finals. And, I feel like that would be a really good idea. I mean, Tyreek Hill wasn't on the trading block when the Dolphins ended up getting him. So, I mean, you never know. With LeBron, the LeBron idea, we're getting obviously LeBron scoring option and best player in the game any given night. But with it, you're also getting the primary ball handler and the guy that's going to pull the strings. And with a lot of these guys, I know Bradley Beal wouldn't be a point guard, but he would be a really ball dominant player who would also be pulling the strings here and there, taking turns with Jimmy. So looking at a player like that, I also think that Chris Paul can come into the conversation. And if teams are getting ahead of us of taking the players that we know are available, the players that everybody knows are on the board, the players that are getting reported on ESPN every day, if those players are getting taken and Pat Riley doesn't want to do anything about it, I would hope that it's because they have an ace under their sleeve. But I mean, hey, you never know. I feel like they should probably get creative with it and see what they can get, because a lot of these teams had an ugly ending season. I mean, the Nets are kind of figuring it out, but their season ended ugly. Phoenix's season ended pretty ugly. So a lot of these teams are looking to probably make a move, but they haven't wanted to be the first one. So if Miami goes snooping around, you never know what you can find.
And let's talk about a player that we do know is going to be available is the Dallas Mavericks point guard, Jalen Brunson. Supposedly, even through draft night, they're talking about signing a big deal with the New York Knicks. Everybody keeps connecting with the Knicks. Honestly, I'm not going to be full disclosure. I have no real knowledge of this guy or, that he was this big of a deal, whatever. However, reports is that now, even though he was supposed to sign with the Knicks, he set up a meeting with Dallas, the team he's with, and he requested a meeting with Pat Riley and the Miami Heat. So maybe you could enlighten me, give me some knowledge here on this guy. What's your thoughts on Jalen Brunson, and what do you think about him requesting a meeting with Miami? And is he a better option at point guard than Kyle Lowry?
Well, I mean, to be frank, I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment, but I would take a lot of people before I take Kyle Lowry. And I mean, with Brunson, Bobby, I'm not really that familiar either. But what I am familiar with is what I saw this year in the playoffs, and doing a little bit more digging. It was the same thing that we were talking about Jovic last week. It's bringing in a player that had experience, a player that played all 4 years in college, so he had the opportunity to win in big moments, to lose in big moments, to learn from both situations. And it's something that players in the NBA don't get a lot because of the one and done system. And I know a lot of times these guys are too talented to remain in college, but a lot of the times those guys are too talented to be in college, and still not ready for the NBA. So finding that middle ground is important to me. And even though a lot of people look down on 4-year players, 4-year college players, I actually look at it as an upside. And especially when it transitions over to the next level, you're seeing it come through. You saw it come through in the playoffs, and that's that tough skin that you grow in big moments, wherever that is, whether it's high school, college, NBA. Obviously, the stage gets bigger, but you're still gonna feel that pressure in those big moments, in those big games. And if you're not built for it, if you haven't been there before, no matter how talented you are, you end up breaking. So that's something I saw in Jalen Brunson, really holding his composure under pressure for Dallas. So he could be a really good option. I mean, if you're comparing what he did to what Kyle Lowry did in the playoffs, I mean, it's night and day difference all the time. You're not only getting a guy that, yeah, he can distribute the ball, he can get his points, but he's also a dog on defense. And that's honestly like he culture all around. You want a guy that's gonna go ahead and dive for those loose balls, that's gonna go ahead and try to take the charge from the big man coming through the lane. Like that's heat culture right there, and that's a guy that would fit it perfectly, in my opinion.
Very cool. And he's younger, as you were saying. Let me make sure I have this. And that's the other thing. He has zero intention of trading Kyle Lowry for Kyrie Irving per what's this guy's name? Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald. He'd have assured Lowry that it has no intention of trading him for Brooklyn's Kyrie Irving, according to a source briefed on the situation. What I'll say about this, it does not say that they won't trade him. They're saying it won't be for Kyrie. So that option is still there, in my opinion. Make sure I have the right stuff here.
I feel like Pat Riley, like that's the other thing with Pat Riley. Like he's trying. I feel like a lot of times he tries too hard to get the best deal, and get the fleece. But at the end of the day, man, when you're trying to win now, and you're that close, sometimes you have to pay a little extra. Sometimes you're gonna have to. Teams know that you're a piece away. Teams know that the urgency is there, and they know that if they don't pull through to what that team is asking for, they can just take it from another team who is less likely to get in the way of winning a championship. I mean, it comes down to, I think it gets really political in the sports sense.
And in the same sense too, it's these little moves. With this current roster, you're losing PJ Tucker, you lose Victor Oladipo, who was out most of the season anyway, but still, you're losing these guys, Morris, etc. That's why I always say. I mean, who is this guy's name? He just got traded to the Spurs, but is going to get a buyout. Dino Gallinari. They're saying the Heat have interest in him. Is that a move that moves the needle? The same thing we were talking about. The guy who got traded to Portland. Alex throws names out there. But to me, it's, does that move the needle? Does that, if you put your 7 at the 4, or you keep them at the 5 and you put Bam at the 4, and I'm not knocking the idea of it, I'm just saying, or I'm throwing it out there, if, like what Alex brings up, putting Omer at the 5 and you put this guy at the 4, and Omer, okay, he has potential, sure, right, under the Heat organization and the way they develop it, but does that actually move the needle in the East? And as you're saying, I know we could just sit there and say, dude, wait it out, let it see, as I was saying earlier. And that could be the case, and I'm okay with that. But you actually have to have a plan in place. If there's players that you're interested, if you're interested in a Murray from San Antonio, if you're interested in a Kyrie or a KD or John Collins in Atlanta, go for it. If you think this guy is going to move the needle in the East for you and put you over that hump, go do it. Don't sit there and say, oh, but I want to protect these little pieces here. No. If this, if you think the same roster can't make the deal for you, then you got to go and do it. You still have your core. You got Bam if he's not a tradable piece. You got Bam. You got Jimmy. Maybe, I don't know who, Kyle, whatever. But if you got those two guys, that's your core, then you need to build around and make sure they win a championship, because Jimmy's window is closing. People could pretend we got 2 more, 3, 4, 5 years. We don't. We have 1 to 2 years left. And he deserves one for sure. I mean, he's put his heart out there. I mean, he's busted his ass trying to win a championship. And if we're going to say, oh, but in 2 years, don't worry, we'll get this guy. We don't have 2 years. We don't. We don't have draft picks to trust 2 years. You could pray that Jovic becomes KD reincarnate. You could pray that could happen. And do I think he has raw talent that has the potential to be something? Yes, I do. I'll say it. And I'm not someone who jumps on the young guns, but I think he does. But you can't succeed or live off the hope of tomorrow. You got to worry about right now. And right now, do the Heat have enough to win a championship? You could pretend they do as a fan, but they don't. I mean, you still have the Nets who are going to come back better next year, maybe. You have the 76ers who have Harden and Embiid. Harden just opted out of his deal so he could sign a cheaper deal so they could get somebody like PJ Tucker and help out that roster. The Atlanta Hawks, despite losing maybe John Collins, are still going to get stronger. The East is getting tougher. And yes, Miami will be in the center of that. The Heat will be the 5th, 6th, whatever, 5th seed, 3rd seed, whatever, at hoping. But does that have enough to get over the Boston Celtics? This isn't enough to get over the Brooklyn Nets or the 76ers. They need to do something to be able to secure a secondary superstar or a second superstar that can take the ball, Chris Paul, if like you were saying, if that type of player who could, when Jimmy is giving his all and those other guys aren't, this guy could step up and provide that next 20, 30, 40 points. I understand the idea of sitting there and trusting the process, but not at the risk of losing a season, because if you don't win, you're missing out. Like you say, the Hawks. If you're a Hawks fan, you loved already how your team looked. You had a young squad, Trae Young, John Collins, Cam Reddish, all those dudes. It's a good roster, but you traded a veteran piece and multiple first round picks for a young Murray who's up and coming as another young superstar. And then you might lose John Collins, not by him running away, but possibly trading him for something else. That's a team that is committed to winning. And not saying Miami's not. Miami is absolutely committed to winning. But they have to do something. So let me ask you this. Is there any move out there? Kyrie saying he re-upped with the Nets. Bradley Beal is opting out of his deal and re-signing a max contract with Washington, reportedly. Donovan Mitchell probably staying with Utah. KD is staying with Brooklyn and with Kyrie. There's no reports on Chris Paul. So is there anybody out there that you look at? Is it Ayton? Is it Mo Bamba? Is it whomever? Or let's say superstar quality. We'll talk about those guys. But is there anybody out there that I'm not talking about? That you go, Bobby, let's not forget this guy. This guy, let's not sleep on him. This guy might be available for trade or sign. That could move the needle for Miami. Not add and fill in the blanks like we're talking about. Who can we put a power for? Somebody who could move the needle to get over that hump.
Yeah, so another player that people seem to forget about, well, I named two really. So we'll start with the first one, which is one we've talked about before, and it's a bit more of an obvious one, is going back and taking a close look at what the Lakers are doing. And because the Lakers have a very interesting situation, I feel like any of those players, you could add them, and they would fit in Miami nicely. Obviously, last week and the week before that, we were looking at Anthony Davis as a very expendable piece because, the injury history, all of that. But as the market moves and, as the world turns, now Anthony Davis is looked at as a very valuable piece just, in 7 days. And that's how quick the league changes. Just these moves, they have a domino effect across the league. So Anthony Davis is a player that could be a factor if the Lakers are probably looking to move in a different direction, go for young pieces to put around LeBron. Russell Westbrook, although not a very sexy option or anything like that, another player who's very desperate to win, another player who has a chip on his shoulder, and I feel like Russell hasn't gotten a fair shot, a good bite at the apple to really show what he can do. I mean, you're looking, he was with OKC, obviously, goes the last time we saw him, Dame Lillard hit a three in a space to send him home in the playoffs. We see him then in the next big stage. He's playing with James Harden. Uh, Back then, even when that trade happened, I said it was going to be a disaster,
Yeah.
and it kind of worked out. But then Harden got hurt in the playoffs, as he usually does. They go out, and they get swamped, and Westbrook got hurt too in that run. Then he goes to the Wizards. Nobody cares about the Wizards. I don't know. I couldn't tell you what Russell Westbrook did that year. Couldn't. I don't really care because like nobody watches Wizards. Then he goes to the Lakers, but basically what we're running off of is what we've seen the previous years, and then with the Wizards, he wasn't doing anything that would pretty much put him on the spotlight. So with and then he comes into a team with the Lakers where he kind of has to find his spot. The puzzle's already made, and then they're not bringing him in as the last piece that they needed. They're bringing him in as a piece and telling him, find your way to make yourself fit in there. So, if I felt like that was never going to work out. Russell could be a piece. And then, the final piece of that Lakers, of looking at the Lakers, is looking at LeBron. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, LeBron's not going to leave LA right now. LeBron's set in LA right now. But, dude, if you look at the way LeBron moves, I mean, LeBron is cold-blooded with the way he moves. Cavs left them at the worst possible time. The Heat left them at the worst possible time, possibly, just because like that team could have kept going, man. That's one thing that even if he comes back and we win again, that's one thing that like both the city and him would have been so much better off if he would have stayed. But that's a whole nother debate. That's a whole nother debate. I could go on for days.
We will.
Yeah. So yeah, you bring a guy like that in. Obviously, he would be a game changer, and I'm telling you, like I said before, bring in the farm. You want Hero, take him. You want Duncan, take him. You want Oladipo, take him. You anybody like I'll go as far as like to throw Bam in the mix, just because when you get LeBron, yeah, obviously he's older now, but like let's be real, in the playoffs, LeBron, he could be Bam 10 times what Bam is. He could be Bam and then do enough to hold the weight for another.
Well, LeBron is LeBron, right?
Yeah, so there's exactly no argument around that. Like literally, Bob, you said it perfectly. Everybody understands when you're like you bring LeBron to the team. Then you start looking around, and there's a guy that people are forgetting about, Bobby. That I'm like, another stubborn guy that he's with a franchise. He wants to be loyal, but he just keeps losing and complaining about how he's losing, but he doesn't want to leave. Damian Lillard. He's a little bit older now, but another player. And I know we're not talking about guys that are in the news for Miami right now, but like we said earlier, if the market is moving the way it is and Pat Riley doesn't want to pull the trigger, because a lot of these guys are what you said, Bobby, they're good players, but are they moving the needle? If Pat Riley doesn't think so, you have to start thinking outside of the box. You have to start calling these teams up, and you have to start looking for a bargain, and you have to start doing a bargain for them in order to get that final piece, because they know you have the urgency. They know that you slept on the market, so now you're here calling me about Damian Lillard, who's we had no plans of even moving, and now we're on the phone. So, Miami has to start looking at that, and Pat Riley has to start saying, I have to make the sacrifice of having to pay a little more in order to win now. Because I know we talked about with Alex how he really believes that Bam can bring a championship to the city. I believe Bam can bring a championship to the city if he's playing alongside Jimmy. I don't think he can do it by himself, because you need a dog, you need a killer. Every team needs one. And Jimmy is one. Jimmy is as cold blooded as it gets. Steph Curry, like these are the staple like players for your team. That once they're gone, your team's never gonna be the same. I mean, you saw without Steph, what were the Warriors that year that he got injured? Nothing. Giannis, when he got injured 2 years ago, literally taken out the floor right away. So you need to maximize your star players, and you need to maximize really your franchise players, because if you don't, you're just gonna keep rotating pieces with guys that They're pretty good. They're very talented. But with the NBA, there's this problem that, everybody's coddled. Everybody was a man. So everybody's walking on eggshells with these players. There are very few players have that mentality. We're lucky enough to have a guy with that mentality, and not only with that mentality, it's an old school mentality. And I know I compare Jimmy to Michael Jordan a lot, and I know it sounds delusional to some people, but I'm not saying they play the same, but the mentality is very, very, very different. And although it hasn't proven the same results, look how far a player with Jimmy's talent has gotten with just putting mentality first and grit and heart. It's taking him far, far further than people would have expected when he first got traded to Miami. So yeah, Bobby, I'll say those four names. I got Dame, I got AD, I got Russ, and I got LeBron on the table pretty much. What do you have?
No, I like it. I like it a lot. First off, Dame Lillard. I was, again, like Chris Paul, when Russell Westbrook was available, I was very interested in bringing him to the Heat because of the what he could bring. Not just, you saw what he did this year because the role wasn't right for him. I know Alex's point, and he may be joining us soon. I know he's at Disney World, so I understand if he gets sidetracked. But so I don't want to put words in his mouth. But the whole point of, don't put all your eggs in one basket, your cap space, whatever, and then jeopardize your young core and the balance of your team. Like, the Lakers have Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Russell Westbrook, and not much else. I know they got Malik Monk and, whatever, but they kind of digging for scraps to build a capable roster. Where at Miami, you could look at the roster and say, damn, they're a pretty good balanced squad, but what are they missing? They're truly missing that piece, that other guy who could take the ball from. Thank you, Jeremy, and thank you for watching. Jeremy's letting us know that PJ Tucker to Philly. I don't know if that's a closed deal or not, but we'll see. I know Mambamba is a deal here. And from the magical world of Disney, Alex Atiachiska is here.
What's up, my people?
Oh, what's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm tired, man. I'm wet. I'm moist everywhere.
That's disgusting. That is disgusting. We didn't need to hear all that.
Bro. But thank you guys for waiting up for me a little bit. I got probably like 15, 20 minutes to spare here.
That's perfect. Well, look, we'll tell you what we're talking about. Is just, we were talking about what players could be available. What's up, Jakey? What players could be available for Miami. Obviously we're talking about Kyrie, KD, Donovan Mitchell, whatever. They're not available, supposedly. We don't know. Things might be surprising. But is there any other player in the league that's not being mentioned that could help move the needle? Juan was bringing up Russell Westbrook, Anthony Davis, LeBron, and Damian Lillard as possible names. What I was saying was, as we discussed before, one of your things, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but since you're here, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
About making a trade for a player with a huge contract, putting your eggs all in one basket, jeopardizing your young core to get an extra star player. That's what happened with the Lakers. They were basically scrapping for little pieces here. The Heat have a balanced roster, but in my opinion, they're missing that one extra piece next to Jimmy. So we were asking, is there any other player in this league that might be available or might not be available? No one's talking about that could help Miami move the needle. Not a little piece, not an Omer type player, but a player that Miami could acquire and actually could be an actual piece that help moves the needle for Miami.
Well, I generally thought it would be Durant, but with the Kyrie news, you can it's not a for sure thing because a trade could happen at any point. But it seems to be that Kyrie and Durant are locked in at least for next year. So we might possibly revisit Durant again a year from now. But at this point right now, with the state of the NBA, I imagine because even the Donovan Mitchell situation kind of cooled out. I don't know if you guys have talked about it or not. I expected tomorrow to heat up after the first domino falls. I was really surprised. I don't know if you guys talked about the Brunson deal, about the situation where you've talked about it. Okay,
yeah.
That's to me. I understand when it first came up. I'm like, it's probably a smoke screen. He's trying to get probably like a sit down interview because he's definitely going to New York. and he doesn't want to get, they don't want to get filed for tampering because when you agree a contract right after free agency, for sure it's tampering. But and then you start kind of seeing, financially how it will work. Dallas was interested in Kyle Lowry. Would they move that contract? Is Brunson the missing piece? He's not. He's a decent player, but we even talked about it. I don't think he's a savior for the Knicks. But for me, I don't see right now a big player that is attainable in this current climate, because even Damian Lillard is probably going to sign an extension with Portland. Portland is improving around him. I see possible signing trade situations like the Brunson deal. One that I don't think is going to happen, but DeAndre Ayton, that's another signing trade curveball, wild card. I don't see it happening here, but it wouldn't surprise me. I still think realistically, the biggest difference might be someone trying to prove like a Mo Bamba deal. Well, I don't know if Mo Bamba has signed or not.
No, that I was just. And let me read that out very quick.
Okay.
There have been Austin Konopsky for Sports, not Miami Heat writer. There have been more rumors about Mo Bamba going to the Heat around. So he said it may be difficult for Miami to acquire Bamba as he's projected to command a range of $9.4 to $12.8 million, and Miami only has that mid-level exception up to $6.3 million. And they cannot acquire him via sign trade if they want to avoid their hard cap.
Exactly.
But he is to draw attention. Now, I will say this, Alex, as you brought up, I was saying earlier about the Tyler Hero situation, that Hero is more than likely to assign that 25 per year million deal for 4 years.
Yeah.
And he wants to command the max, but he's only going to get 25 million from Miami.
Mm-hmm.
We brought this up in our chat, but I was bringing this up to Juan, is that I'm not really, if you love Tyler Hero and you think he's a huge piece of the Heat, which he's still young, still has upside, still has a little bit of growth left. He's a big part of the team, absolutely. If you love him, it's great news because you've got him to stick around with Jovic and Jimmy and Bam. However, if you're someone who's like, no, we need to move him, I don't think it's the end of the world either, because he's an attractive piece by the deadline with that 4-year deal, and he's still an upgrade. He's still a player with potential. So that's more attractive to teams than a guy on a 1-year deal. If you got a guy on a 4-year deal, a young player like that, that's a good trade, sexy trade.
Absolutely. You got player control, a young player still developing. You got him under control for another 3 to 4 years. But the one thing that I would see, kind of like the Jalen Brunson deal, if something were to materialize, I kind of see it like the D'Angelo Russell deal. Since D'Angelo signed with Golden State, the signing trade, he signed with Brooklyn, was traded to Golden State. He's been traded, I believe. He was traded to Minnesota. So it's a movable contract because it's a young piece. Even a Jalen Brunson, there's a team that will acquire him. For example, a Detroit, a Minnesota. They would acquire an asset like that because you have him under team control. So I want to see. I personally hope, and this is gonna sound insane, but I personally hope that PJ Tucker does take that Sixers deal because it frees the Heat of having to make the decision. I love PJ Tucker. He's a heart and soul on defense, but even for the 3 years, I would like to see the commitment because I see more possibilities. Even if you divide that exception with a Oladipo, with a Bamba, I love Jovic.
Sorry.
I love the possibility. Even when we talked about Gallinari probably be bought out and he will be looked into. But I understand you have veteran leadership, you have shooting, but I don't want to limit the development of Jovic right now, even in the beginning of the season, because he comes from a different environment. I think Juan talked about this. In these countries, in these European leagues, it's not like here. The guy's 22 years old. People see him skinny and frail. He's 6'10", 250 or 225, 230. He needs to put on some weight. He'll improve defensively, but he comes with a different mindset. He's not scared of the moment. He
was playing with pros
with pros.
We discussed that. Yeah,
exactly. So he has the mentality. He's like a 7-foot Tyler Hero in that aspect. He comes to the mentality that he looks to be. He's not scared of anyone. He's not scared. Oh, he did? Did you see?
Yeah.
One of the few things me and Juan agree upon. I love you, man. That's a virtual hug. Virtual hug.
Yeah, I mean, you can't.
Has he talked bad about Pat Riley?
Team.
A little bit.
A little bit? Oh, Juan.
Oh. Town's too small for the two of us when it comes to
That's why I'm in Orlando.
I know. I mean, you said it perfectly, AJ. I mean, he's pretty much a bigger, more improved version of Tyler Hero if you were to make him in a lab. He has, even though he's European, he has the swagger, he has the handles, he has the shot making ability. He can get you a bucket in the paint.
He can. He can.
In the mid range, he can shoot from three. And the guy's 6'10". I mean, I don't know. Like looking at a player like that, I feel like Luka would have changed the landscape a lot. And I know like Luka completely different player, but
Yeah.
I feel like after Luka and after seeing guys like Dirk and seeing more European players come onto the scene, that they will start giving them a little more respect and really like start considering the fact that these guys come from playing with grown men and talent level is what it is, but like grown men playing against grown men's strength is playing against grown men's strength, and nothing's gonna compare to it at the collegiate level.
And the game is different over there. They officiate it differently. It's tougher to score.
Everything.
Yeah.
The fans are everybody's really passionate about that sport compared to here, and here we see it as the NBA as the mecca. But yeah, dude, I feel like this kid is really gonna surprise, and in the end, 3-4 years from now, hopefully, if things go good, people are gonna look back and say, "How did this guy fall to the 27th pick where he should have been?"
You know what, though?
Top five.
Look at what happened with Luka. Look what happened to Jokic from Denver. He fell to the second round. I think this kid he's a raw prospect. I understand him slipping. But when I was watching him, his tape, I mean, raw prospect, but his ball handling, the way he shoots the ball, he kicks out.
Yeah,
I mean, I think
it looks refined. It doesn't look raw from those aspects that you're talking about. Like some things can be refined, but he's already like shows extreme class in like the way he shoots the ball, the way he handles, playmaking ability. All this, he looks seasoned, and he looks like he has the technique down, everything down. So yeah, Bobby. Just between a few intangibles, getting used to the NBA, I think this is a guy that's ready to make an impact.
I don't know. I think this is gonna be a hidden gem that I think this was a blockbuster hit. And I'm not saying that because Alex knows I'm hard on the younger guys. You know,
Yeah.
Alex knows me on younger guys.
He was hard, and he was hard on Dragic. He was hard on the Europeans too, man.
Yeah. Well,
Wait, AJ, man. This man, he was trashing Dragic.
He was for a long time.
As a point guard in the finals, I'm like, bro, Dragic.
hey, I said, man, guy, you put work, boy. I was saying, imagine Chris Paul in the finals.
Oh,
Dragic's broken ass wasn't even playing a game. Broken toes and crap, man. Don't be
broken toes. Look at that man, bro.
The leading
That
scorer.
man had plantar fasciitis.
He was the leading scorer in that playoff run.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was also the one leading the bench with his busted toe. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh,
no,
man.
Dragic might be coming back to Miami. I think people are sleeping on that.
I think he goes to Dallas, bro. The situation in Dallas is perfect for him because he's not going to get that much playing time here, honestly. He'll come and coach when he retires.
The European UD.
Alex, so listen.
Yeah.
So news is if PJ Tucker more than likely is going to Philadelphia.
Okay.
They were saying that players that Miami has interest in. T.J. Warren, Ken Anderson, Dino Gallinari. I'm trying to remember exactly some of these other guys here. I know we talked about Bumba. I said Chris Rozier earlier. So let's talk about T.J. Warren because he has history with the Heat in regards of Jimmy Butler, that famous little scramble that they did. So is out of those group of players, I know you brought up Blake Griffin. He's another player Miami supposedly has interest in. What player would fit perfectly as a veteran, not Jovic, a young, like a veteran player who you go, man, if we had to replace a starting four, who would be a good fit for the Heat? Ben Paid 305, thank you for tuning in. He writes Danilo, Batum, or Terrence Ross are available. So what is there any player that you go, a veteran presence who you go, man, this would be a good starting four for the Heat to start next to Bam?
Man, to start next to Bam, well, you can, for example, discount Warren. To me is too short to play that role. And we'll be back. TJ Warren.
Gotcha.
To me, is a little too short. I will go with Juan's pick that we talked about, Bobby Portis. But I think he signs back with Milwaukee. I think he just opted out for financial reasons, obviously, secure a longer deal. But the thing, for example, I'm intrigued by Gallo. and we've always pursued Gallo the last 2 years.
Yes, we have.
So, and I know you've brought him up. The only thing is, I don't know if it's truly an upgrade over a young Jovic. Like, I genuinely don't believe because Gallo doesn't give you anything defensively. Really.
So let me just talk because you said
yeah.
and this is something and just full disclosure to Juan. This is something Alex has brought up years and years and years of conversation is growth and stop installing the growth and letting these guys play it out.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're saying you'd rather start Jovic than sign any veteran.
Me right now. If the team, my preference is to sign Mo Bamba. I think Mo Bamba is the perfect match with, if, for example, we don't get a Bobby Portis. I think Mo Bamba is the perfect matchup of the perfect combination with Bam in the starting lineup.
Shoot
and you can start
from the perimeter.
Yes.
7 foot tall.
Athletic, rebounding machine, defensive. He blocks shots. He's all over the place. That's number one. If we don't sign a Mo Bamba or another, they're gonna sign a veteran for or stretch for. They're gonna do it. But I would be intrigued to start Jovic. The reason I say that is because he has all the offensive talent. He's going to be in a starting lineup where he's protected by Jimmy Butler, by Bam Adebayo, while he's still developing. He doesn't seem to be afraid. And watching his tape, offensively, he's not fully developed, but he has the perfect guard skills because he started as a point guard. He started as a shooting guard. He just had like a 7-inch, 8-inch growth spurt the last year and a half. So that's why he's 6'11" now. And supposedly he's probably still growing, maybe like another inch or two. So you have a massive point forward. Offensively, that gives you a dynamic, even if you start Hero, if we stay with Lowry, which the more I see it, the more Lowry seems to be titter. I know they confirmed that they wouldn't trade him for Kyrie. That seems to be just Kyrie. That. Exactly. So they haven't given confirmation you're not going to be moved. He could be moved. In a perfect scenario, he could be moved. But I just see him not in a bubble because he's still going to play and he's still going to have his rough patches moments. But I think it speeds up his development because he is 22. No, he's 19. He's still young, but like Juan has mentioned, he's come from playing from a situation with professionals, hostile crowds. He's still an amazement, so it's going to be a rough few first weeks. But if you want him, you need his talent on the floor. If you're going to have his talent on the floor come playoff time, you start that unit from the beginning. I've always been a big believer. Even remember when Spo's known to do this. Remember when he started Kendrick Nunn?
Yeah.
He started Kendrick. He had no problem starting Kendrick Nunn because he was the best unit, the best complementary piece to Dragic.
Harrison said, and Harris was supposed to be on. I don't know. Hopefully he's doing all right. But maybe he got stuck at work or something. But he was telling me earlier that he would love to see Jovic at point guard. He'd love to see
at times
at point guard, which makes sense just because of the way he handles the ball and he's a point forward. And whatever.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you this though, because Jalen Smith is a guy I like a lot.
That's another option.
Young gun from Indiana.
Yeah.
He's just going up. He's 22 years old. Mm-hmm. You could get him for the cheap, low risk, high reward. So that's one guy.
Yeah.
Better at the three. But I want to ask you this guy because we've talked about him in the past, but I want to talk about him right now while you're here. LaMarcus Aldridge, free agent. He's met with the Heat in the past. There's a little bit of connection there because of the meeting with Riley.
Yeah.
Is that somebody you would be intrigued for Miami to sign as a veteran at the power forward?
I would be intrigued as a veteran presence, not a rotational piece.
Blake Griffin? Would you put?
I would prefer Blake Griffin because I believe at this stage in their career, and Blake Griffin showed it in a few games he played. He was just out of the rotation because that's what Steve Nash decided to do. But Blake Griffin has kind of reinvented his game where he can give you spot minutes, 10, 15 minutes. I wouldn't see it as a full rotational player, like 15 to 20 minutes every day.
No.
But if I had the option between Blake and LaMarcus, I would take Blake. Now, experience-wise, I would take LaMarcus if that's our only option, kind of like your veteran leader, because every championship aspiring team needs to have a veteran presence. You even saw what Iggy did for the Warriors. Just coaching up your kids, coaching up your players on the sidelines, kind of like what UD does.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that people haven't talked about much. I want to see what UD does because it could affect certain situations. Yes, it does open up another roster spot, but the 15th man really doesn't do anything. But it would change the dynamic in the locker room. So I'm waiting to see now because it sucks that we do our show the day before free agency.
I thought of that. Yeah,
it's like now tomorrow it's gonna start falling. You're gonna start hearing rumors. There's always gonna be that wild card. I've been waiting. I was surprised by Jalen Brunson. It makes sense to me. I see why they're doing it, but I was really surprised by it. So I'm just waiting for the Aiden curveball. I really think he's the wild card in this whole free agency domino effect.
Okay, and then let me get this because I know you're there, and we're gonna ride off in the sunset in just a second here.
Okay.
And then maybe we could get together and do a reaction show to free agency if something goes down tomorrow.
Absolutely.
But let me go ahead. Where is this at? Orlando Robinson. That's what I want to talk about before you head out.
Yes.
Orlando Robinson. The Heat, obviously, they drafted Jovic. Everyone's excited. But this kid, they got some other undrafted free agents, but I want to stick with this guy for just a second.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about him, and then we'll wrap this up and go on from there. But first off, they signed they signed Fresno center Orlando Robinson, 7 feet tall, 235 pounds, 21 years old, was a junior. Played 36 games last season, Alex. Had 19.4 points per game, 8.5 rebounds, 3 assists per game, a steal, 1.2 blocks, shot 48.4% from the field, and 35% from the three. So, look, man, this is a guy I think could actually make the roster. I think there's a strong chance this kid makes the roster. I loved what I saw when I watched some tape of him. What's your thoughts on that signing, Orlando Robinson?
Well, I'll take it a step further. I was. You brought him up to my attention. I started watching film on him. I've been watching film on him for a day, 2 days, nonstop, because I wanted to see how he complements, even playing alongside Bam, even playing alongside other lineups. And he has, Bob. I will go on a limb and say I guarantee he makes the roster because he has. First of all, he has a smooth shooting touch, completely natural. It doesn't look forced. He is 7 feet tall. He has a wingspan, I believe, of like 7'5", 7'6", or more. He's a natural physical specimen down low. He has one particular post of move where he takes 2 dribbles, spins around, either dunks it or a little hook shot, and I saw it repeatedly. But his comfort level, stepping into the mid-range, stepping to the three, it opens up so many lanes. And physicality on defense, he gives you size because Bam gives you versatility. Sometimes Bam gets outsized when he makes up for it with versatility and quickness and power. But I was always told you, I don't think people are aware when you have an Orlando and then you have an Omer, they have strength that people don't see. And they're going to surprise a lot of people. And do not be surprised if you have a rotation of Omer and Orlando sometime in the season supplementing each other because the Heat will do that. When you are a championship organization, you put your pieces. If you have the perfect complement. You have young pieces, you have pieces in your prime, and you have veterans. When you have all those threes, you have the perfect ingredient. You have a perfect chemistry in a championship caliber team. So you can kind of hide a few deficits while you work on it, and you make up for it with your veteran presence, but also you make it up with athleticism, with your quickness, with your youth. So it's a perfect mesh.
Let me ask you this very quick, because this is something we talked at the top of the show, and I promise you we'll close it out. Juan was bringing up the frustrations of Riley not doing anything as everybody else is doing something. Let me ask you this. Right now, as it sits, tomorrow's free agency, things could happen. I told him that, which is I hate to say trust the process, but just wait it out.
Trust it out.
So are you still confident that Miami can still make a move here to help improve the team, or that, hey, this is just wait and see, let's hold it off, maybe it goes into the trade deadline?
Oh, it's absolutely, he's going for it now.
Okay.
Riley ever makes a move in the trade deadline that reshapes your roster, he adds little pieces. But a major player, he tries to do that typically off season. Yeah. And when people are always like, they want to see moves done. They want to see moves and want to be the first to report the moves. I don't buy into that. Well, I always said it. We work in silence. Yeah. While people we're making moves, people just don't see it. We're talking, we're tampering, just like everybody else is tampering. We're talking to agents. We're prepping everything up. The thing I love about the Heat is that they always have a sequence, a plan. So you got plan A through Z. If plan A is executed, it unleashes the next steps. If not, they go to the next step, So I am more than confident that maybe not even tomorrow, but in maybe 2 days, I'll give him max days. By tomorrow, we could have a franchise-altering move that we didn't see coming. It could be short-term. It could be long-term. I don't, like I said, the people that I don't see being moved at all is Jimmy, Bam, and Tyler. I don't see them being moved at all. Everything else, don't be surprised if some pieces are moved.
Hey, the Atlanta Hawks just acquired Murray, and only had to move Dino. They'd have to move John Collins. They just moved some first-round picks, and that means John Collins is still available. So I would not sleep on him. So
That's not. And one thing, Bob, that I want to throw out there
yeah,
that I've told you privately, and so our followers can see it. I would love, if possible, if we could get our hands on Cam Reddish, because
yeah,
I think Cam Reddish is being his talents, his development is being stalled. He's gone from organization to organization, and they haven't really paid the mind, which is also what I saw with Mo Bamba. In Orlando, he kind of stalled them, and Orlando shifted and they went to another direction. That's why he's an unrestricted free agent. They didn't even restrict him. They didn't give him a qualifying offer. So they're just letting him go, test the market, which is possible if you do that 1 year mid-level also with Victor Oladipo. I'm intrigued even by, I really hope that Victor Oladipo doesn't go anywhere because I believe he's going to have an explosive year. But we'll see tomorrow, man. It just takes one domino to fall and then everything else starts falling in place.
Absolutely. It's not. Let me tell you something. You think the last few days have been fun? Just wait until tomorrow when things start going a little crazy. Very quick potential DeAndre Ayton trade package floating around. Suns receive Neil Claxton, Joe Harris, and maybe Cam Thomas. Nets receive DeAndre Ayton.
Wow. Okay.
So that's a floating around. So
wow. Hey, Bob, I think Phoenix is making a mistake with Ayton.
I do too.
They're playing around. Phoenix window's about to close.
The report said there's a report that was saying that they believe that they could get a center who could offer the same capabilities as him. I think they're wrong. I think they're making a mistake there. And you maybe you want to watch the beginning of the show. We'll close it out and maybe we'll have a reaction show tomorrow or sometime this weekend or something.
Absolutely.
And just keeps up with us, guys. But to find out, Juan asked me about Chris Paul. What do I think of Chris Paul if he was become available? So that's something to I know what you're going to say.
Yeah,
you and I've had these disagreements before. But I said yes. I'm 100% down. I've been down with that.
I know you said yeah. I think about it now that you say that. In our situation, it'll be trading Kyle Lowry maybe like a pick, right? Just to make salaries work.
Yeah,
I wouldn't mind it. I wouldn't mind it right now.
I think it's and I was saying the thing that made me prove that I was right about trying to get a player like Chris Paul was the Kyle Lowry move.
Yeah,
because Lowry had a huge. People can say whatever you want, but he did have a lot to do with the Heat being the number one seed.
He did.
But the leadership, the play, etc. If you get Chris Paul, that puts you over that certain pedestal. And
I'll say this to end it from my part. Even if we don't move Lowry, even if we move other pieces, we could quite possibly move and change the franchise, quote unquote, without moving Lowry. I don't mind if Lowry comes in pinpoint shape, but he needs to lose at least 15 or 20 pounds because as you get further in age, you got to lose your weight so you don't lose quickest. And you can tell Kyle Lowry mentally was trying to get there, but his body wouldn't allow him come playoff time. And he still made certain moves, certain plays that altered the series in some series. So I don't even mind.
I'm not against keeping him. I'm not against keeping him, but I'm not against trading him for a better piece.
Absolutely.
A needle moving piece. But anyway, guys, we'll let Alex get back to Disney World.
Yeah, before my family leaves me here.
Yeah, I want to thank you all for tuning in to the Goon Squad. The free agency tomorrow, we might have a reaction show. We'll get with the guys and try to figure that out. But thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. We will see you next Wednesday night, Eastern time on the Goon Squad. Fins Talk today on Saturday, overtime on Monday night at 7:30. And we'll see you then. Take it easy, guys.